Welcome, Rinkcast, to this Blackhawks Hockey Rinkcast, episode 41, exclusively sponsored by the Premium Hockey Outfitters at puckhockey.com. That's PUCKHCKY.com. Use the discount code THERINK. I hope some of you used it over the holidays and Christmas, but you get 10% off on your orders if you order something over $100, I believe. It's free shipping, and you get free gifts, and you get all kinds of good stuff. So get over there, get your rink wear, and maybe you could peruse the clearance section and get something else too while you're at it. A little bonus. So today is Friday, January 11th, 2019. I am Jeff Osborn, better known across the interwebs as Gatekeeper.
Who could be scared of a Jeffrey?
Yeah, Jeffrey's just this nice bloke from down the road, isn't he? That's the joy of the Jeffrey, you see. It goes away, but then it comes back.
I am joined by my good friend, co-host, and fellow grumpy old guy, Mr. John Jaeckel. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hello.
Are you enjoying your Jeffrey?
Yeah, that was good.
Y'all need to take a hit of this Jeffrey. It'll calm you down.
Oh, God. It's been a long week, right, huh?
Brutal.
Yeah. Together, we are your most trusted sources at your favorite online hockey hangout, the-rink.com. So before we go any further, let me introduce our guest. First of all, let me introduce you as Tyler Cameron, but people online may not be as familiar with that name as you write under the pseudonym of Justin Lowe for HockeyBuzz. You are the Blackhawks lead writer. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hello. Hey guys, thanks a lot for having me.
Of course, man.
That is correct. I just I've kind of dropped some hints here and there, but definitely dropped the bomb in the email or in the blog today.
Yeah.
It's Tyler Cameron. Yep. Sign off as TC instead of JL now.
Oh,
Nice.
there you go.
Nice. You're coming out into the world of the known. Go ahead.
I had to mix it up because the Hawks have been so bad this year, so I thought drop some news of my own.
Right on.
You had to drop the bomb on him? Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, you've written at other hockey sites before and covering the Hawks, and you're actually an author too, published author. We're among excellence here, John.
I know.
You wrote A Dude's Guide to Surviving His Wedding too. That's an interesting change from hockey writing.
Yeah, it is. I got married, almost 5 years ago, and realized there wasn't anything for us, guys, us schmucks when we're trying to get married. And thought it'd be a good POV from the guy's side to, help out a little bit, but still be able to watch the game. So I got some tips and tricks on that, as well as in corner save some lines too.
Awesome, that's cool, man. Yeah. So we're the little guys here, John.
We are. We're not published authors.
We're the amateurs.
But it's great to have you on. You and I go way back to back in the days before I passed the baton to you at HockeyBuzz, which was, in hindsight, was a great decision on the part of the powers that be at HockeyBuzz to give that role to you, and I'm proud to say that I did provide a recommendation. I'm sure that there were other reasons, though. Probably my recommendation may have hurt more than helped. But it's great to have you on. You're doing a fantastic job over there, and you really kept the mojo going. And we've been doing our thing over here for a little over a year now, and our community's growing as well, and they're kind of growing together. I mean, there's a lot of crossover among our readers and our commenters, and great bunch of hockey fans. And so it's really great to have you on, man. We've been looking forward to this for a while, so thanks for doing it.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot, John. I really appreciate it. Like you said, you and I go way back, and I do appreciate the recommendation. It's been a lot of fun writing and trying to fill your shoes, and it has been awesome to watch you guys do what you're doing. Try to give as many shout-outs as I can. And there's never a shortage for Blackhawks content. That's for sure, especially with as well the athletic and the great stuff that they're doing. There's a lot of stuff out there for fans, much more than when we were coming up as youngsters following this team.
Yeah, there's quite a bit. There's no shortage of content. There's I think there's varying degrees of quality, and we're really gratified that you chose to be on with us tonight, because we count you among those who really provide the outstanding content and the responsible content. So without going further down that road, what do we got, Jeff? Let's get into it.
You weren't speaking of any kind of jabronis or anything, were you?
Oh, no. There was no backhanded shot at jabronis there.
What's up, jerks?
Yeah, well, okay. So as we get into this, let's get into the Blackhawks right away. This afternoon, while we were all driving home, the Blackhawks trade Jan Rutta and a 7th-round pick to Tampa Bay for Slater. And I'm going to let Tyler do this one. It's Slater what?
Koekkoek. Slater Koekkoek from Canada.
Yeah, Slater Koekkoek. So he's actually a former first-round draft pick, 10th overall. So it's like Stan's going out there and getting all these questionable or late-blooming former first-round draft picks. But if you get anything back for Jan Rutta, I mean, it's a win, I guess.
And he sheds
actually, if you got nothing back for Jan Rutta at this point in time, it probably would have been a win.
Yeah.
But what did you guys think of this? Because I haven't even been able to wrap my head around it just yet.
I'm not going to pretend to be a Slater Koekkoek expert. I do recall that in his draft year, our guy Wiz had some positive reviews on him, and he fits that profile that Stan Bowman loves, that left-hand shooting, puck rushing defenseman who's weak in his own end. But he was picked 10th overall by Tampa Bay, who they've had a good eye for players over the years, and it has the feeling, like you said, of Dylan Strome or Brendan Perlini, those types of guys who maybe did not live up to expectations with their first teams. Oh, Anthony Duclair. There's a pretty long list.
Nick Schmaltz.
Nick Schmaltz didn't live up to expectations with his first team, and he's now with his second team.
Yeah.
But it can't hurt, because there's like no downside to it. You lose a guy who really wasn't, living up to the expectations that we had of him. And you actually turn a 7th-round pick into a 5th. That's kind of nice too. And you lose, I think you lose about $1.4 million in cap hit too. So all the way around, kudos to Stan Bowman. We'll see what this guy can do, if he can elevate anything with this defense. It would be better, I think, if he were more of a solid defender and maybe not, the puck rushing style of defenseman, because it feels like that's more what they need right now. But yeah.
Ty, what was your thoughts on the trade? You were the one that actually broke it to me when I sat down. You messaged me. You're like, "Oh, the Hawks got rid of Rutta."
You know what? Kind of echoing what John said. I mean, if anything, if both these players just disappear next year, it's the Hawks get a 5th for a 7th. But yeah, I've kind of been, I had my eye on Koekkoek a little bit as well around his draft year, and the fact that I thought he didn't really get that fair of a shake in Tampa, but granted and admittedly, I don't watch every single Lightning game, and kind of the more you read, it looks like he was maybe taking on water a little bit defensively, and taking more shots against than for, but he was putting up solid numbers, and a lot of people thought that maybe he would come back in a lower role. But yeah, I mean, Jan Rutta's gone, so I mean, that was a bad signing at the time by Stan, and he just corrected another mistake, so it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, and that was something we've talked about the past couple of times, is like, originally Stan was always doubling down on his mistakes. He'd make a mistake, and then he'd make another mistake on top of that to cover up the other mistake. And now it seems like more recently that he's been actually accepting his mistakes, like Brandon Manning and stuff like that, and accepting the mistakes and getting rid of them instead of, having them hang around, waste their time, waste everybody's time, waste money and stuff like that. So, hey, I could respect if you realize your mistake and you correct it.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess Koekkoek was probably going to end up in Rockford, and He's going to play what?
I don't know. He's played quite a few NHL games over the last 4 years, and
he's played 9 this year. But
9 this year, but I think he played like 40 games last year and something like that the year before, and with a good team. It's not like the Hawks are bleeding all-stars on defense. So I mean, he may get some time in Chicago, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, he played some playoff time too, and Tampa's a great playoff team, right? So I mean, he played in playoff games in the 16 playoffs. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't hurt to, like you said, they don't have a bunch of all-stars, so you might as well put somebody out there. And he's on the left side, so maybe he can slide in there and they can see what they have at least for the rest of the year. So.
I mean, you said they don't have any all-stars on defense. What about the great Erik Gustafsson, guys?
I can do that now.
Well, I guess this is a good segue. I mean, we've talked about the trade as much as we can, but the great Erik Gustafsson, guys.
Well, it's interesting. So I posted on the Twitters the other day. This was in the aftermath, I believe, the Calgary game. I said, finish this sentence. Quote, when Erik Gustafsson leads your defense in time on ice, which he did, ... finish it. And then best response is read and attributed on Thursday nights at Rinkcast. So we got some interesting comments. One was from, what's that guy's name? I want to get his name right because it was a great comment. Where are you, buddy? Galaxy Trash. And he said, where is it? Crap. Yeah, Galaxy Trash. Anyway, the gist of what our friend Galaxy Trash said was that they're giving him a lot of minutes in order to really develop him and see what they have going forward. I believe that is the intent with giving him a lot of minutes. The other thing is he's playing a lot of power play time, he is the lead defenseman on the power play now, for better or worse. And I actually think he's actually pretty good on the power play. It's 5-on-5 that I don't really have a lot of use for him. So that's a good answer. There was some other pretty funny. Our buddy Brainsbrain, who is a unabashed Erik Gustafsson booster. You are in heaven when Erik Gustafsson leads your team in time on ice.
Because you died?
Yeah, right. You die. You've died and gone to heaven. Yeah. Andy Kosher, I'm going to assume that's pronounced like Joey Kosher. Your team is caca for caco. Your team is guaranteed to lose for use. Let's see what else. There's some good ones. From our guy Agonist, the stats and analytics guru. You wonder whether Stan will keep Gus or save money and go get Jake Gardner from Toronto or better puck movement, or Myers from Winnipeg for physicality. Both 29 years old, available on unrestricted free agents, or blow the cap space on Panarin instead of Stone's grit or Donskoi's finish with size. So there's a lot to unpack there, and we'll just keep moving on because Agonisty very, very often speaks over our head anyway with his big Agonisty brain.
Well, for me, it's not hard to speak over my head.
No, mine either. There it is. Here's Galaxy Trash. It means the team is trying to allow his potential to develop and maximize his talent in a year we aren't going to be a playoff team. I think that it absolutely is the intent. Whether it's going to work, that's the other story. Because here's the problem I have with that theory, and we've talked about it here before. He's been with the Hawks organization now for at least 3 years, perhaps 3.5 years. I'm not sure.
Pretty sure it was 3.
And there's this assumption that's out there, well, nobody's really coached our guy Gus before. That's not true. They've tried to work with him since he first came over. They worked with him at Rockford. They've tried to work with him in the NHL. So his defensive gaffes and snafus are, there seems to be sort of a learning disability there on his part, or he doesn't care about defense. I'm not sure. But to say that, he just needs some coaching is kind of, I think, naive. You're going for the first overall pick. That's from George Outdoors. You are now the Chicago Icehawks. That's from Jack Masters. You have a bottom 5 NHL roster. That's from our guy Esox Actual. John O'Donnell Sr., you can guarantee at least 2 breakaways by your opponent.
Tap the brakes.
Pardon me?
No, that was Laz in the box.
Tap the brakes.
Right.
Yeah.
So there were some really great, that's just a smattering of them, if you will. But there were some great comments. And,
yeah. So Gus, like you said, he's been with the organization since 2015-16, which is 4 years. He had 2-year contract, and now he's on the second of a 3-year contract, I think.
3 years. That's 3 years.
Yeah.
That's 3 years.
And interesting thing, when I just looked him up right now, I was just kind of looking at his stats because I hadn't looked at him in a while. And this year, his 8 goals is a career high in any level.
He's having a great year offensively. And he's certainly, I mean, on a bad power play, he's, certainly not hurting. The issue with him is can he, because they're talking about him, and this I think is what gets you and I going, Gate, is people are talking about him like he's a top pairing defenseman, the next Erik Karlsson. He's going to be elite soon, if not already. But the reality of it is that he's a liability in his own end, 5-on-5 in most situations. I mean, and it's a problem because for everything he brings to you offensively and all the dazzle that he provides people and gets the meatballs all triggered, he's a real liability in his own end, and a lot of his gaffes lead to goals. And so, what are you really getting there? But sure, it's a lost season, and the guy obviously has very high end offensive ability from the back end. It's certainly worth trying to see if they could coach him into, and I really respect Jeremy Colton for what he said. He said it's up to him. It's up to him whether he wants to be a great player, because that's what it's about. It's like when I, coach Pee-wees. Yes, I coach Pee-wees.
You coach Alex DeBrincat?
No, they're about the same size. No, but when I tell some of the kids, you can be a great player when you give great effort. And that's the bottom line. I mean, the best players in that team can be the best players in that league when they give great effort. When they don't, they're pylons. They're just spectators. And, that's the same thing with Gustafsson. If he wants to be great, because I really believe that his defensive shortcomings are not about a lack of ability, physical ability. I think it's a lack of desire and a lack of priority on it. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, we don't wax poetic on Erik Gustafsson at all. No. Yeah, we are very hard on him, and we point out his defensive deficiencies. But that doesn't take away from the fact that he could score a goal and he can handle the puck. And if he's on the other end of the red, or the other side of the red line, but I don't want him out there in any situation where he's going to have to defend, because he may be the worst on the team. So
yeah, he's pretty bad.
Now, Ty, you've got a whole different, not a whole different. You might have some crossover, but you've got another fan base, and I'm sure you've gotten into conversations about Erik Gustafsson. What is your thought on this?
Yeah, my take is honestly, at the start of the year, I thought, okay, he's maybe turned it around a little bit, and especially JJ, going back to your comments about Colton, some of those comments were made when he was in Rockford, right? And he said last year when he had some time with Gus, he said, even Gustafsson admitted like the drop passes. He made these reference to these drop passes, and he's like, I don't think I do those anymore. And Erik just, well, so anyway, we've been talking a little bit, and I think he's got so much swagger offensively. He almost looks like he thinks he's invincible defensively now, where it's gotten worse. I'm like, it's gone to me going, okay, he's not too bad. It looks like he's maybe improved. And like you said, John, he's actually, it looks like he's putting that effort in, and he's paying a little bit more attention to the details. And now, like the last couple games, some of those passes up the middle, like from behind the net, wasn't even up the middle. It was trying to go towards the benches or flipped up. It doesn't look like he's coming back. I mean, he's got such an amazing skill offensively, and his skating is great, but I just don't know. I mean, you can let him develop as much as, they are right now, but at what point do you say, okay, this guy's got to be a bottom pairing and PP specialist only? I mean, you can give the guy some ice time, and yes, I know he is, like you guys alluded to, he is getting a lot of that time on the power play, but every other shift going out there is really a top 4 defenseman is hurt. It's just hurting this team. And a lot of people over, all the fans on HockeyBuzz, they're kind of saying the same thing. So he's a liability until he hones that in a little bit and starts paying a little more attention to his own end. It's going to continue that way.
Yeah.
Not too good, man.
Yeah, I have to, among these, I'm going through the comments again now, the responses.
Yeah.
Mike Hines and Ken Callenbach had the ski instructor from South Park. You're going to have a bad time.
It's just a game, man.
But I will end by saying, for people who want to punt him and trade him, he is doing a great job on the power play. I mean, to have that, and that chemistry with Kane is pretty crazy. And there's been jokes about, why don't you just put him forward on Kane's line?
Well, some people are joking about that. Some people are serious.
Yeah. Give him a couple shifts.
Yeah.
They clearly like playing together, and they do have some chemistry, but I don't know.
Well, now that they have Sheldon Brook Brink around, he can show Gus how a fourth line or a third pairing defenseman can play fourth line wing.
You can show Gus some jam. Sheldon had jam.
Man, come on.
Yeah, I don't. He does have the skill, on that side. So you can't dispute that. And putting him out there on the power play, if he's a third pairing guy that you put out there on the power play to lead the power play and makes the power play work as well as it's been working lately, that's fine. But don't jam him down our throat. Put him where he can succeed, not where he's going to be, underwater and overwhelmed and drowning nightly. So.
And put him with a partner that's just a steady Eddie defenseman, because he's going to need that every time he's on the ice.
Well, I think that's what they've tried to do by putting him with Keith. I mean, they're playing him on the right side, and he's probably better on the left. But they put him on the right side with Keith because Keith is probably the defensively, positionally the best defenseman they have. And I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I'm going to keep an open mind about him because I'm not going to dispute the fact that he has great offensive ability from the back end. And he's a great skater, great passer, great shot, all those things. But if you're going to play that role, you really need to be. And then the other thing that they say is, well, Karlsson sucks at D2. Erik Karlsson on his worst days is better defensively than Gustafsson on his best. So let's get real. I mean, Karlsson's not the greatest defender, but he's a lot like Keith in terms of the style he plays in his own end. And he makes a lot of plays with his stick and with his speed. I just think Gustafsson's got a long way to go before he's a guy who's going to, be part of, I think, an elite team playing regular shifts 5-on-5. He's just got to improve because he's a real liability 5-on-5 defensively most of the time.
Yeah, well, see, I thought you were going to say that they brought in a nice solid defender when they brought in.
No, I'm not ready to claim that yet.
Yeah. Actually, with Koekkoek, I think the Blackhawks are going to lead all teams in the NHL with players that have last names that start with K.
Mm-hmm.
Kunitz, Kampf, right down the line.
Yeah.
So, anyway, with that being said, the previous trade that was made, it sent Manning out of town and that whole thing, and brought Drake Caggiula. Jason Garrison did not report to Rockford. He actually chose to voluntarily retire from the NHL and then take his game over to Europe rather than play for Rockford. So I don't know if it's just that he didn't want to. I don't know if he's going to get much better quality of opponent over in Europe than he would in the AHL. So I don't know
It could be one of those deals where it's just, a lot of guys go over there play in Great Britain, or they play in Switzerland, or they play in Germany. I don't know where in Europe he signed, but nothing against Rockford, but I don't know. At a certain stage of my life, I might rather be in Basel than in Rockford.
I think it's in the Swedish Hockey League that he signed.
Okay.
But
I was just listening to radio up here, sports radio, and they were interviewing Matt Stajan, and he did the same thing. It was an opportunity for him and his family they always wanted to travel Europe, but he's been playing hockey, takes the kids over. He's on a team with, I forget, a couple other former players. And, one was his former teammate in Toronto. So he was happy to be there. And it's just now an opportunity to you don't want to do the day-to-day grind as an NHL player, maybe just enjoy a little shorter travel and some experiences with your life and family.
Yeah. I also thought he may be getting a head start, because his contract was up after this year. So he may just be getting a head start on what he was going to do next year. So
he signed from a PTO too. I mean, he was on his last legs anyway.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it's no big loss. The only thing, it might have helped Rockford a little bit to have that veteran there again. They had Cody Franzen last year. I mean, not that Jason Garrison is Cody Franzen, but that veteran presence.
I thought he was going to be Rockford's Cody Franzen. That's why I tweeted right after that trade. I'm like, he's actually going to do really well for them down there. But I mean, they've got so many defensemen down there anyway. It's going to be hard to fit them all in. So it's kind of nice, probably a blessing in disguise that he pieced out to Europe.
Yeah. Yeah, Ty, what's it like to have sports radio that actually talks about hockey and might know what they're talking about?
Well, it's amazing when you want to listen to the Leafs. So it's just Leafs. And they've actually been a little, I thought it was going to be a little more obnoxious than it actually is. But I think the Leafs fans and broadcasters are still scared that this Leafs team's still not going to do anything. So they're not too cocky yet. But no, it's amazing. Every time you turn it on,
I used to spend a lot of time, as you know, Ty, in Toronto, and I was always Toronto sports hockey radio. I was always there was always these trade scenarios that were just completely favorable to the Leafs and terrible for the other team. And they were always every day they had the Leafs trading Nick Antropov to the Hawks once a week for 5 years. I mean, it was like, guys, don't you have anything else to talk about but these stupid made up rumors?
They don't. And there's actually a really funny thing on YouTube of terrible trade proposals on Toronto Sports Radio. And the one is just outstanding where the broadcaster, the guy, you could barely understand him. I think he'd had a couple drinks. And he said, we're going to trade him for, it was some Ian White he thought he was saying Nathan Horton. He's like, no, that's not a good. No, he's talking about Joe Thornton. It's like, no. He's like, he just hung up on him. He's like, buddy, you got to stop calling here. Guy probably calls every day. So no, it's hockey crazy here. I worked in the sports industry for a long time too. So it's interesting. But honestly, right now they're liking the team, but they're still cautiously optimistic. So it'll be interesting to see how the Leafs do this year in the playoffs.
Interesting to see what they do at the trade deadline too.
Yeah.
They're a team that looking for a veteran presence, to help put them over the top. And we've been talking pretty regularly about the fact that the Hawks may have a veteran or two that could be that kind of player for a team like the Leafs, not necessarily the Leafs, but for a team like that that's looking for that bump and playoff experience and leadership at the trade deadline. So, it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, we had to fight with that guy from Toronto when, I don't know, a couple weeks ago when someone suggested they send Keith and Crawford to Toronto. The guy was all up in arms about it. He was all mad. I'm like, some guy that I don't think John and I have ever talked to was all upset about I don't know if he was name searching or what, looking for people talking about the Leafs. And we weren't necessarily really that serious. And he's like, "Oh, I can't believe you said that their goalie isn't any good," and going on and on and on. And I was like, dude, you're taking this this silly little comment way too seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of hero Leaf fans, so it'll Yeah, like you said, John, like even I could even see on the lower end, like we've talked about, or I've heard you guys talked about too, just even someone like Marcus Kruger. Like they don't really have a great fourth line center or a 13th guy, somebody with some, I mean, throw a lower pick over or someone that can help Rockford, and maybe that's what you get back for Marcus Kruger. But he could definitely be someone that could help them.
Yeah, and I think Bob McKenzie touched on that.
Oh yeah.
Night before last, that Kruger's a guy that the Hawks could end up dealing at the deadline to somebody. I could totally see that because I think he's a more worthwhile player than many give him credit for because of the things he does away from the puck. Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. I mean, we always come back to this every show. We don't have to go down that rabbit hole again tonight. But I mean, what the Hawks do at the trade deadline is like incredibly compelling for me. It's like I hope they'll do something, and I hope it's not buying. And I don't think it will be. But will they move one or two of their bigger contracts and get some potentially exciting futures back? They probably can't move Crawford at this point. They're probably not going to get much back for Anisimov. The guy that I'm looking at and saying could probably bring a very nice return is Duncan Keith, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, as much bashing of Bowman. Actually, we do some apologizing for him too, saying that it might be more from above than him. But as much as we do bash Bowman a little bit. Lately, these past couple of trades, it looks like, at least on the surface, on the paper, he's come out ahead.
Well, certainly, I think the Strome trade so far looks like a win and we're not huge Nick Schmaltz fans either, so that's the other thing. And he could yet bloom in the desert.
He's going to have to do it next year since he's out for the year.
Yeah, not this year, but he could yet. I mean, and down the line, But Strome looks like he's really flourishing with the Hawks, and he looks like he's potentially what they need in that second line center role going forward, and potentially. So that one looks good, But I mean, the skeptic in me looks at these trades he's making, and it's just basically trying to hack as much salary as he can because the team is having a much harder time selling tickets than they have in years past. And it's just kind of balancing the books more than anything else. We'll see. Because then the other school of thought is, well, they're going to amass this big war chest of cap space and go out and dominate.
Don't say it.
I'm not going to say it. Like I said, but I will say, because it's funny, because somebody was busting on the Blue Jackets, like how bad they'll be if they lose Panarin and Bobrovsky. And I came back with, but they'll have well over $20 million cap space. And, that argument that, the Hawk fans think that Stan Bowman's going to have this money and then, he's going to ride the unicorn out into free agency and bolts of lightning coming out of his, where. And, but the reality of it is that a lot of teams are going to have a lot of money. If the cap goes up, so are salary demands. And the likelihood of an overpay for a top free agent is high. But, all that said, John McDonough, Bowman's boss, he loves that big splash in the summer that gets the attention away from the baseball teams or the Bears and back onto himself. And, from a marketing standpoint, that makes sense. The problem is what's good for marketing short term is not always good for hockey long term.
We found that out.
Yeah.
Oh, anyway. Well,
sorry to bum you. Sorry to bring you guys down.
No, I'm always down.
I'm on board too. I mean, we were kind of talking about this on the message board the other day about someone was asking me what, same thing, John, like all this money, I'm not even going to say his name because I think that's what you guys were alluding to, but like him coming back to town. Yeah. But I'm like, you know what? It is hard to rebuild through the free agency, and it's not smart probably. However, what I will say, and devil's advocate to that, is with all of the younger players locking up for such long term, like to get a really high impact player, you have to maybe even grab one or two if you're Stan this summer, because a lot of them are locked up, and unless you're trading for them, which a lot of people don't want to move them, you might have to do that. I mean, Marian Hossa wasn't a bad free agency. He was signed July 2nd, 2009. Well, that wasn't the worst decision.
July
so I mean,
actually, but
right.
But that was a different team than this team. That was not a rebuilding team. That was a team on the precipice, and that was really the piece that put them over the top. And this team has a lot of holes. And that's the other thing is that I think part of this Panarin. There, I said it. Oh my God. but this Panarin narrative that's emerged is also based upon a belief that all of the defense prospects in college and junior and overseas are going to pan out. And we don't need to do anything for the defense because we've got all these great prospects. But if you go back through the last just 10 years of Blackhawk draft history and prospect history, there have been a lot of guys who were supposed to pan out and didn't. A lot of them, and some of them were defensemen. And Adam Clendening comes to mind, but he's not the only one. Dylan Olsen, et cetera. And so, bottom line, there really are holes. And my belief is the way you really rebuild is to accumulate high draft picks, very high draft picks, and hit on them when you take them. And, not unlike what Winnipeg has done. I mean, you look at up and down their roster, they've just got size, speed, talent. I mean, elite talent in some cases. And those were all guys they acquired through high draft picks. The price of that is that you've got to stink for a few years. But having followed this team since the 1960s, there were more than a few years that this team stank. And I'm a believer that it could just tank for a couple of years and then come back really strong, with these kids that you've drafted. But we'll see. I mean, maybe he'll pull a rabbit out of his hat in free agency. I can't think of a really big free agent signing that he's made, much less one that's really positively impacted the team. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah,
it's pretty big.
Yeah, I don't know what free agents they're gonna. I keep hearing about how this free agent class is going to be so wonderful, but if Carlson signs after the trade deadline, which he very well could, what I just heard the other day, if he signs with San Jose after the trade deadline, and they can work something out with Panarin, where are these big names?
Yeah, I mean, some people might, Jeff Skinner's having a bounce back year. Some people might look at him.
Yeah, but he might get re-signed. They might, Buffalo might sign him.
Jacob Trouba.
I think he's an RFA though.
One of the Hawks, he's an RFA though.
Yeah,
he's an RFA, so that's probably unlikely.
I mean, Matt Duchene, he's in talks. They're starting talks with him.
Yep. There's not a ton out there, so it may also they may also have to go the trade route, and step up big for somebody,
Yeah, I've heard this several times from people. Oh, this is a great free agent class. I'm like, yeah, but that's if everyone makes it to free agency, and generally that's not always the case, especially the high end players. You know well ahead of time if those players aren't going to be re-signed normally. And there's like 3-4 good names, but all those names could be scooped up. Maybe Bobrovsky's going to be the best name that hits the free agent market.
What if they made a hard run at Wayne Simmons? I'd be all over that.
Yeah, I like Simmons. I mentioned a couple guys like Simmons and Ferland.
Michael Ferland, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Give me a little grit, guys that can put the net in, a little character.
Oh yeah, for sure. Those guys are good role players that you can put into slots. But those high end players, as far as high end players go, like who are you going to spend $10 million on? And since you brought it up, you broke the seal, John. So, we've brought up the Panarin thing. Like
seal.
if they're gonna go out, supposedly the super fans say that. They're going to go out and get Panarin now. They're going to have upwards of, $16 million or something. That's not with free agents re-signing or RFAs re-signing. You whacked $10 million off of that. Where are you going to get a couple of maybe decent free agent defensemen or any other depth in the lineup? You're going to count on, Kruger being gone. So Kempf is definitely the fourth line center. Like, we're counting on a lot of ifs And that's not even counting if Corey Crawford can ever play again. Like,
I don't think I think if Crawford plays again or plays well again, that's a bonus at this point.
And I don't even think, and I'm not saying this to disparage Corey Crawford. I think maybe the playing really well wasn't necessarily what happened. He came out a little hot, but he got real cold.
Yeah, agreed.
And that's not to say anything like but he was coming off of a major, the fact that he even started off hot is amazing in and of itself.
Yeah, I remember he played a string of games when he came back, and then he started to sort of cool off. And I remember Ward played one game for the first time in a long time, and I'm watching him going, man, Ward's really good. I think because I really don't think Crawford was all that good really overall after he came back. I mean, God bless him, and I just have the utmost respect for his desire and his passion for the game to come back in light of all that happened. But, at this point, I think he's got to be looking at his health and his long-term, future and functionality as a human being. I mean, that's tough. That's really, really tough.
Well, I'll bring this up now because this is when one of the questions was one of the late ones. Our girl, Jackie Davis, she said she read today that Rick Nash has announced his retired due to head injuries and stuff. Do you see this as a road for Crawford after this last injury, maybe retiring sooner than later? So that's, that's another possibility. They said Crawford was in the building the other day smiling. He hasn't skated. He's still in the concussion.
But he's smiling.
Yeah. Which, just like the cat yesterday, right? He's out on the ice, so he's really hitting it hard. Okay, maybe he's breaking in a pair of new skates. He's out there 10 or 15 minutes earlier than everybody else. He's really hitting it hard. I like his dedication. Shut up. Jesus. Some of this speculation on the internet about maybe a guy's out there, like I said, breaking in a new pair of skates, or maybe a new set of gloves that he's trying to try out. So he goes out there before, instead of, in the middle of a drill, not being able to skate or losing his edge or something. Some of this.
You know who's having a pretty darn good year?
Who?
Matt Duchene. Matt Duchene is having a pretty good year.
Yeah, he is.
42 points in 37 games.
He just had a kid this week.
Yeah, I mean, he's seeing again. I think I was in the minority among Hawk fans, but I had heard a rumor a couple of years ago that the Hawks were highly interested in him. Now that they've acquired Strome, maybe that interest cools off a little bit. But there's a guy. I mean, he's definitely fulfilling, at least this year. He's living up to expectations, and but again, probably the market will be crazy high on him too.
Well, now is a good time to bring this up again. I was listening the other day. I think it was on the 31 Thoughts podcast or something, where they were talking about Erik Karlsson again. And you had brought this up, is like, if you're going to spend $10 million on a player, maybe that's where, where your defense is, you got a hole on defense. Bring in Erik Karlsson to come in and, help with the power play or run the power play. I mean, he's definitely better than Gustafsson.
Yeah. So his numbers, Erik Karlsson this year,
they're better. They've gotten better for sure.
8 assists, 41 points in 44 games. I'm not sure what his plus minus is or his Corsi, but it's interesting because the belief of the Hawks with Adam Boqvist is that we can overlook his defensive shortcomings because he'll drive possession offensively. And, there has been a characterization of him as the next Erik Karlsson. But I guess the other side of that coin is, the current Erik Karlsson is 29 years old. So probably had at least 5 more good years. That's a sure thing. He is Erik Karlsson. The other guy may be Erik Karlsson, may not be. Most likely, probably won't be quite that good. I mean, but maybe. And the other guy, I think, plays the other side. I think Boqvist plays the left side. So
he plays the right.
He plays right side.
Yeah, he's right too. Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, but there's an argument for that. I feel like the Hawks will not go that route because Bowman has overhyped the defense prospects now to the point where, he would be making himself look like he's throwing good money after bad, or bad money after good maybe. But to me, the thing they really need to be looking at is primarily defensemen or forwards who can play some defense, because I really think also that one of the reasons this team gives up so many shots and basically stinks defensively is the forwards are not as good defensively as they were a few years ago when Patrick Sharp and Marian Hossa were on this team.
Yeah. But back to my original point. Sorry. Just if you're going to use the money and you're going to use it big, use it in a place where you have a hole. Like right now, where do you put Panarin? Because then you aren't you supposed to have the cat there? Isn't DeBrincat supposed to be that guy?
I mean, if you go out and spend $9 million a year for Temi Panarin, Alex DeBrincat is not going to have as many quality minutes in quality situations going forward. Not going to happen. Those are going to go to the guy you're paying $9 million a year to. So it probably doesn't help Alex DeBrincat's development into the kind of player you think he might become. It doesn't, because you only have so many of those minutes in those situations. And it's not like, I mean, you could move DeBrincat over to right wing, but he's not as good there. He's at his best at left wing. So there's that. Then you have Brandon Saad, who you're paying $6 million a year to. He becomes your third line left wing at $6 million a year. Not a good investment. And Artem Anisimov becomes your fourth line left wing at $4.5 million a year. The issue is left wing is not a glaring need for this team. That's part of the problem too, as much as, there's a glaring emotional need of some fans to see Panarin back. Yeah,
because bringing back players that were here once before works so well all the other times.
Right.
100% of the time, it works all the time.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I like that one. I wish I would have pulled the sound clip for that one.
Yeah, no, you guys brought up a lot of good points. I think, and even Gate, like you were saying, on defense, like if you guys are going to spend on that, look at who's out there for UFAs. Like I think that does have to go the trade route, because outside of Carlson, do you want Bouwmeester, Mark Mathot,
Jake Barker, maybe?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean,
like if you could get, like, for example, if you could get Cody Ceci, or Tyler Myers on an affordable deal. Those are the kinds of guys that Cody Ceci's is an RFA, so you're probably not going to get him. But Myers, he's 29 years old, he's a UFA. I mean, he's not going to save your team, but he is that big, physical, more stay-at-home style defenseman that this team really could use. The question is, again, I have a feeling guys like him are going to break the bank this summer. I really do. Somebody's going to throw a lot of money at him, like what's his name, the guy from Washington, Alsner. Last year, the year before, he made a ton of money,
and now he's in the AHL.
Yeah. So anyway, it's free agency is it's going to be really tough to rebuild this thing to free agency. I don't know, maybe they go out and they look for some great values for guys who sort of plug holes in the complementary roles, with the belief that some of these younger guys are going to become stars. I mean, that could be.
Oh God, there's just so many of the responses that I just, they pop into my head and they just make me, if I had her, I'd pull it out. It would make me want to pound my head off the desk because, the cap's going up, right? When you tell them, well, you can't have three people on this roster making $10 million a piece. You can't have $30 million tied up in three guys. Like, you can't have that. Well, the cap's going to go up. Okay. All right.
Yeah, but what people don't understand is when the cap goes up, so do the asking prices of players. I mean, agents are much more aware of the ramifications of a higher cap than anybody else. And what they know is that if the teams have another $3 to $5 million a year to spend, they're going to ask for more for their clients. It's just goes without saying. It's economics. More money to spend means more demand. That drives price up for a limited number of players. It's just economics. So thinking that because the cap is going up, that's going to give the Hawks some kind of advantage, it's not. It's not. It's not an advantage at all. It just means the players are going to make more money. That's it.
No. Now, and if Bowman is moving in the direction where it kind of looks like he's moving right now, where he's like making these smarter moves, getting rid of this dead weight, it looks like he may be, for better or worse, at least moving in the right direction, making some moves that seem to make a little bit of sense for the Blackhawks in the future. Filling a hole with a big paycheck that isn't there is not a smart move with, a 7-year commitment, probably. That's not a smart move. I mean, anywhere else, anywhere else, you use the money, starting with the defense, but don't do it at left wing where you seem pretty stacked already.
Well, and then the other issue is there's beyond Panarin's agent saying, Wes, by all means, we expect the Blackhawks to be players for our team. Of course he's going to say that. He's trying to gin up the value of his player. Beyond that, there's no indication that I'm aware of that Panarin's shown any inclination to want to come back to Chicago. I mean, I know everybody thinks that, it's like the old Kane Taves off-ice buddies narrative that was pushed out there, which was never true at all. That he has this great chemistry with Kane and he loves playing with Kane. I got to be honest with you. I mean, say what you want about John Tortorella, but he's used him in ways that Joel Quenneville and that staff never really used him, and he's really blossomed. He's gone up a level, in my opinion, while he's been in Columbus. And that's not to say that of course Quenneville's gone now, but it just doesn't seem like there's. From what I've heard, he wants to be on one of the coasts or in Florida. And he also seems to like being around his fellow Russian players, of which the Hawks don't have a lot of. I think we have one at this point, Anisimov, and he may not be long for Chicago anyway. So I honestly don't see Panarin coming back to Chicago unless the Hawks were to just do something completely insane and offer him like $12 million a year. That's like $2 to $3 million over his market value.
And you would have to have another deal in your back pocket to open up some kind of cash somewhere.
But why? But at that point, why would you do it? Because scoring left wing is not that great of a need. For
exactly.
This team.
Yeah, for sure. We all agree. It's a nice thought, but you know what? You got Brandon Saad there now. You've got Alex DeBrincat there now. Those are your top, at least your top two.
And you know what? A lot of teams would be happy with those two as your top two. Could they be better at left wing? Sure, they absolutely could. But the bottom line is it's not as glaring a need as, for example, defense is. The hole that was created when Nicholas Hjalmarsson left, even if he was sort of beginning the downward slide of his career, it was immeasurable. The Hawks desperately need that kind of player to get back to being a great team, a great possession team that's not underwater in shots by 8 or 9 shots a night. They need that kind of player. The hole that was left when Marian Hossa retired, even though he was starting to be on the downside of his career, he was still a great two-way player and a guy who made a difference defensively. They could use a player like that, and they don't come along very often either. So that's where they really should be looking. I mean, they should be looking at improving the defense of this team from the net out.
Yeah, and let's be honest. I mean, there isn't a position on the team where they couldn't possibly get better.
Probably not, no.
So, I mean, sure, yeah. People need to put it to bed. Let it go. It's not happening. I mean, if you're going to put all your hopes into this, it can't happen.
If it does happen, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, that's enough Panarin talk for right now. Actually, I think
brought his name up.
It was John. He broke the seal.
I broke the seal. It's
I
like
tried to go around it. I thought I did a good job at that.
You did. John just had to do it.
When they let the ghosts loose back into the library, it's just like, oh no.
Yeah, John just couldn't help himself.
It's again, when we're talking about free agency and how the team's going to get better, it's hard to avoid that because he's the premier free agent this summer.
Yeah. And honestly, we're not trying to crush everybody's hopes. We're not trying to upset people. We're trying to tell you what would make more sense than going out and making a stupid purchase, a stupid huge purchase that you might have buyer's remorse soon after.
Well. And quite honestly, it's really funny because I was thinking, I believe it was yesterday when somebody tweeted that the Hawks had been 9 shots underwater in the last game, and they have been all year. I mean that kind of margin, they could bring Panarin back and score more goals and, push more games to overtime and win more games at 3-on-3 overtime and then go into the playoffs and get absolutely crushed again when they get back in. Because Panarin could make them a better regular season team. I love Artemi Panarin, but he's never gone beyond the first round in the playoffs with either team he's been with. And no, I don't believe that they lost to the Caps because of Panarin. I think, quite honestly, he was brilliant. But what it's going to take for this team to get to the playoffs, A, and then B, really to progress in the playoffs is to be a much, much, much better defensive team than what you have today. With some of the offense you have today, but they've got to get better defensively. And Panarin doesn't really bring that.
No, and that brings up like the good point that I kind of mentioned a little while ago that I had heard, that one of the reasons why they traded Panarin away was, of course, his salary, but the other one was that they were kind of leery of Russian players because they don't get an extra paycheck in the playoffs. And traditionally that has been the hush-hush, backroom rumors about Russian players is they don't get that extra paycheck. Now, sure, you got Ovechkin, and there'll be exceptions to rules, but generally that seems to be at least someone in the Blackhawks back office or front office, thinks that could be true. So, well,
and what I heard at the time that Panarin was traded, and I still believe this, is that Stan Bowman recognized that re-signing him to stay in Chicago was probably not a safe bet. So why not, pull the trigger then to get Saad and Forsberg and and I always said, that trade looks really crappy right now. It's going to look crappy for the next couple of years. But in 2019-20, when Panarin's wearing a Tampa Bay sweater or an LA sweater or a New York Rangers sweater, that trade is not going to look as bad for Stan Bowman. So there you go. I mean, and I do believe that was the thought process of the Hawks, that they were not going to be able to re-sign him, or it was going to be very hard. So why would he come back once he's a free agent? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, and his good buddy who he played with over in Russia, Kovalchuk, is in LA right now.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, Las Vegas has a lot of Russian players. Tampa is a team, I think, if they could clear the money, he might give them a little bit of a sweetheart deal, because they have a lot of Russian players and good Russian players. And, that seems to me to be a possible destination for him too. And of course the Ranger fans, like the Yankee fans and Manny Machado, the Ranger fans are convinced that Panarin's going there. They're convinced. So we'll see.
That's what I think, like Drager or someone said that. Drake, maybe it was Drake's, I don't know.
That he was going to New York?
Yeah.
I heard that recently.
So we'll see.
Can you imagine him and Kucherov on a line, though, in Tampa?
He's sick.
The way
they would have to clear a lot, though. They've got some cap. They've done a great job with the cap, but I mean, there's
not only have Russian players, they have good Russian players.
And I saw it recently, the term sorcery, but the sorcery that they have going down there, like they were in on the Carlson thing. They may be in on Panarin, and they've got, Kucherov and all these other, excellent players down there. They got one of the best records in recent history in the NHL this year. They're just crazy good, and they could get crazy better. That's he's doing they're doing the opposite down there of what Stan Bowman did here for many years, actually.
Well, I mean, we'll have some tips for Stan.
Right.
He's a mole.
In fairness, Bowman inherited a team on the cusp of 3 Stanley Cup championships, and he's had a different sort of road to hoe as a GM than they've had in Tampa. They've been good, almost great teams, but they haven't won cups. And when you win cups, and prosperity has a price, and so just to be fair, the Hawks have had to do a lot of this cutting because of the fact that the guys wanted to get paid, and there was a salary cap. That's a fact.
Yeah. Anyway, all right, let's not stay too long on that. Let's get rolling so we can get into questions soon. But so tomorrow, it looks like, at least for the near future, maybe that Colin Delia is taking over the crease is the 1A to the Cam Ward's 1B. He's had several starts lately. He's played real well. He's seeing about 50 shots a game, it seems like. But he's playing really well. My boy Colin Delia, I want to shout out to him, of course. But yeah, he's been playing pretty well, and it's been promising. But again, it puts kind of a veil over, what this team really is. It was just what Corey Crawford did a lot during his career. We kind of put a veil over the deficiencies that the team had. Colin Delia is kind of doing that to a lesser degree now. But, it's making fans think that the team may be a little better than they are. I mean, Cam Ward's played well too. And the team is better than it was when it was in last place, but not much. So, they got a hard, John, you were saying they got a hard road ahead with some of these games, but at least they have, the All-Star break and their bye weeks coming up at the end of the month. So that's good for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the rest of this month they've got Vegas, they've got Washington. Trying to remember who else. There's a few other tough games the rest of the month.
What do you?
I don't know. I just think they're so far out now. I don't see them making the playoffs. And if they do, they're gonna get bounced in 5 games. And I don't think they're gonna make it. I think that's not even worth saying if.
No, I heard Jammer. Jamal Mayers the other day talking about, well, if you want this team to actively tank, I think you should play hard and da 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 da. Like, no, people. It's not that we want Jonathan Toews to turn around and shoot on his own goalie. It's not. That's not what we're looking at here. Just stay the course of being kind of bad. Try, but let's not get crazy out there. Let's just continue the course. They had their next maybe generational defenseman last year in the draft. Now maybe they can work out and get a next generational forward and hit the free agent market, and then there you go. There you've got a solid future ahead. But making the playoffs doesn't do anyone any good except for Rocky's wallet. So.
Right. Just making the playoffs, right?
Yeah, making the playoffs it's a fallacy. Like some teams just get in the playoffs and lose in the first round, and because they're not that good, maybe they shouldn't be in the playoffs in the first place.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I think there is a mentality among sports fans. If you make the playoffs, you've had a good season. In any sport for any team. But I don't know. I just feel like the Chicago Blackhawks over the last 10 years, there's been such a level of excellence that. Yeah, I mean, sure, it's all cyclical, and with salary caps and draft position, all those issues, you're bound to have some lean years. But I don't know. To me, I would think that Hawk fans at this point they should have a higher expectation of what excellence means for this team. And the reality of it is that they missed the playoffs last year. The year before, they got swept. And the year before that, they got bounced in the first round. And so it's not like this is a recent thing. I mean, it's really 3 years running now that this team has been on the downward slide. And in my opinion, as a fan, I want to see them come back and be great. I don't want a perennial bubble or first round team. I really don't, because that can go on for 20 years. You could stay stuck in that rut.
Well, yeah. I mean, they just think because they've only been paying attention to the Blackhawks that if you make the playoffs, anything can happen. You can win 3 cups. Who knows? But that's not always the case. The Blackhawks for several years,
decades,
just made the playoffs and did nothing, or lost in the first round, or whatever, or even went
the playoffs,
or went in there as a high rank and lost in the first round to the North Stars or whatever it was, or second round.
Right.
Yeah, I watched that with the Leafs a lot too, where over the years they would be terrible all year and then do a late push and then just worsen their draft pick until they got the big one with Matthews, right? And they were able to turn around with Matthews and Marner. But same thing. It's like your team's not good, and in the end they start giving people hope by going on a little run and February, March, almost into April, and they just missed the playoffs, and it was all for naught, right?
Yeah. Well, it would be really nice for him to completely bottom out and get the first overall pick. You get Jack Hughes or get the second pick overall and get Capo Caco. That would be great, but I would be okay with a top 5 pick. I think this is a solid year for forwards. I think like probably the first, from what I saw on my listing, like the first 8 or 9 players that were ranked for the draft ranking were like all forwards. So
Capo Caco and Slater Koekkoek.
yeah,
Seems to be a lot of center too, which is good.
yeah, they'll just add to all the K's on the team. We'll be the all K team. But yeah, so give me a top 5 pick, and I'll be all right, and make a smart pick. You know, that fills a need that hopefully.
Well, I mean, this year, if there's a Noah Dobson there at 5, take the Noah Dobson, because you got the tiny puck rushing, defensively challenged guy last year. With high upside offensively, definitely. But if there's a Dobson there at 5, you take that guy because you need that guy.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, I don't think there's much more as far as like Blackhawks stuff. I mean, Davidson came back and he's been in the lineup, but he was waived to be sent down. And then Forsling has this mysterious upper body torso injury. And yesterday, Colleton made some kind of like cryptic message about Forsling, how it's not in the near future, but it's not, super serious or something like that. And
could be a concussion.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not saying I haven't heard anything to that effect, but it just seems like when it's sort of like a vague upper body, then it's usually a concussion.
So there's that, and then Yoki Haro's back from winning the gold with the under 20s, the U20s. So it's getting pretty complicated on the defense with all these players there. But someone's going to have to move if Forsling comes back. At this rate, if Forsling isn't back soon, they're going to have to re-waive Davidson to send him down, because I think it's 30 days they have to send him down, or 10 games or something like that. I think that was the rule, until they have to put him on through waivers again. Not that it matters, but it's just another complication.
He might go down anyway with Koekkoek joining. If they want to give Koekkoek a shot, they need a spot open, right?
Yeah, because I think they're at like 7, at least 7 or 8.
7 now, and then Koekkoek would be 8. So someone's got to go.
I just want him to stay up so I can use that sound clip the rest of the year. So, yeah, so that's that with the offense. There's not really much more. I mean, you were saying Vegas. They play Vegas tomorrow. That'll be interesting, and we'll see where they go from there. And you have All-Star Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews didn't make it. He didn't make it in the fan vote, but I'm not really. If you're surprised by that, then okay. But I'm not surprised by that at all. So let's get into questions so we can wrap this thing up, huh? I brought up the one earlier from Jackie Davis. This one's from Washed Up Goalie on Twitter. At what point do the Hawks start bringing more of the young players up from Rockford for the few games at a time to give them a taste of where they need to be? I would think anytime. Stop putting on the charade that they're getting better and they're going to make a playoff run. Just see what you got in some of these players. And I know, Ty, you had a question that you solicited, and it was close to that, which was, will Anthony Lewis ever play in the NHL? I'm not optimistic. So they kind of go hand in hand. I think Anthony Lewis will get a chance. I don't know what he's going to do, because he's all of 5'2" or 5'4". Sorry. The Lollipop Guild. I apologize to you. But yeah, he's a very small player. He's like Alex DeBrincat, also very small. Vinny Hinostroza, very small. Like, these are all very small players. You're already facing an uphill battle at this point in time, and Anthony Lewis is not Alex DeBrincat. So he's smaller, and he's not the talent level of DeBrincat. So, whether he's going to have a future with the Blackhawks, I don't think so. But it doesn't hurt to give him a couple of games. So I'm all for that part of it. But I don't think in the long-term future of this team, if you're going to have Alex DeBrincat being your guy on the power play and this sniper, this low-budget, Artemi Panarin, or this maybe closer to Patrick Sharp on the power play or something like that, that's all fine and well, but you can't have Anthony Lewis out there too. So that's my thoughts on that. What about you guys?
I don't know. Nothing against Anthony Lewis at all. But it's just I'm having a hard time getting really down into the weeds with these arguments about this prospect or that prospect. These are guys who at best, if they have an NHL future, it says complementary players. So fine, whatever. It doesn't. I don't know. I just have a hard time really even caring about those guys.
Well, I mean, at this point, like, DeBrincat is probably going to break out of that complimentary player thing. He's probably going to be in the middle.
I think he already has. I think he already has.
So I think he's kind of in the middle, but you got like Dylan Sakura. I don't think, he's not going to be the next Patrick Kane. Like, he's not.
No.
He could be a good complimentary player, but he's not going to be Patrick Kane.
Could be, but I'm not even sure he's a good complimentary player yet. I'm not sure he's an NHL player yet.
Right, but I think at his max, his top, he's a complimentary player. I don't see him being a dominant player in the NHL. He doesn't have anything that's that wonderful that's going to make him like that elite or at least, top flight player of the NHL, even on the Blackhawks. So, and that's nothing against them because there's plenty of people in this league that make their living being complimentary players and stuff. Patrick Sharp did it. Yeah. Like, he was not the elite player. He was that next level complimentary player.
Yeah.
He wasn't going to be an elite player probably in anywhere in the league. Maybe a really bad team, but there's nothing wrong with that. Like, he served his purpose. He was a great player for the Blackhawks.
Yeah.
And every good team needs that kind of player.
He was sort of like the Dennis Hall of this generation. He was not one of the elite players, but he was terrific goal scorer and a guy who could be part of a great team. Could play a key role in a great team, but he wasn't that at that really high level.
Yeah. Ty, you got any Anthony Lewis or what when they should start bringing young players up? You got anything to add to that?
On the Anthony Lewis stuff, I mean, I think they might give him some games just for being a good soldier. He has been one of the better players in Rockford on a relatively bad / streaky Rockford team. He is apparently 5'7", so they say, but he's also 170 pounds. That's actually bigger than Dylan Sakura, heavier, and it's the same weight as Dominic Cahoon. So he's actually he's a bit of a little bowling ball, and he's got some strength to go with that. So and he goes to the tough areas from what I've seen, but he's not going to be a difference maker like you guys said. But I think just for being a good sport, they're going to pull him up and see what he can do. And to be honest, he'll probably be a flux guy forever for his career. But yeah, go all of Rockford. I mean, you're going to start seeing guys definitely near the end of the year start coming up. Victor Ejdsell, I think, has been a big disappointment this year. I thought he was going to start lightening it up a little bit and then maybe get a bit of a chance. And especially when the power play was really, really bad, he could have been a trigger man for them on a second unit whenever the second unit actually gets on the ice. But yeah, there's not a ton there. There's not a ton in Rockford, and if they do want to see what they maybe have in a Lucas Carlson or one of those guys just to give them a taste, you're going to see it, albeit through injuries or just the fact that they're out of it at the end of the year. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't hurt to bring them up, but I don't think there's any difference makers.
Yeah, well, I could speak from experience. Anthony Lewis, I've seen him.
And he's not 5'7".
I've stood next to him. I'm 5'6". And he was on his skates, and I was looking eye to eye to him. So that'll give you an example. And 170 pounds, I think that might be a little bit off.
I looked that up before once I saw that question. And
yeah.
It's listed on some site. I think the Ice Hog site.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure, he's a little stocky, but he's not as stocky as DeBrincat or even Hinostroza, I don't think. So I don't know. Yeah. He's just, I mean, there aren't many players. There's like one player who was 5'2" or 5'4" or whatever. Tyler Ennis, wasn't he like 5'4"? I think he is.
Yeah, I think he's like 5'5", yeah.
Yeah.
But once again, probably inflated.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. Sure. Give him a try. Let him see what's out there. Let other teams see what's out there. Maybe he could vie for a job at some point in time. All that good stuff. But
Theo Fleury, I think, was 5'6".
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's no Theo Fleury. All right, Johnny Utah, Bears, Blackhawks on Twitter. If they do bring back Panarin, I would assume he's our favorite Panarin apologist. He's always upset when we want to argue about Panarin. I would assume Saad or Anisimov or Crawford. Isn't Crawford LTIR candidate on the way out somehow? Re-signing DeBrincat and Strome would be a top priority, and I think there's creative ways to bring Panarin in. There's always, creative ways, but bringing him in to fill a hole that isn't there is not a smart idea. Once again, I'm going to have to record that so I don't have to keep saying it. Based on our recent success, can we forget about landing a top 2 pick? I wouldn't go that far just yet. I know anything can happen with the lottery, but hopefully we can land an elite player that can contribute right away. If you are Bowman, what would you like to see in the organization before the trade deadline? I think we kind of talked a lot about that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We don't need to get back into it. Clay Bandow. I read and saw the NHL say that the Hawks might be buyers. There's no way in hell, right? What would be a worse scenario than the Hawks thinking they're buyers right now? Yeah, that would be a silly thing to do, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, unless there was some young guy like, of the Koekkoek, sort of profile, a guy who was a recent, first round draft pick who a team was looking to part with, in return for some asset of the Hawks to drive their, for whatever reason, that you could, pick off a guy like that who'd maybe been an underachiever elsewhere. And the thing you got to understand about these guys, and it's part of the reason I brought up Anthony Duclair, is these guys are like lottery tickets. You're taking a chance on a guy who's so far not proven that his draft status was justified. But, maybe if they're buying anything, it'll be that, because that's probably all somebody would be selling to them that makes any sense. Otherwise, I think, the only business they should be doing at the deadline is trying to accumulate high draft picks or quality prospects, period.
Yeah. Mark at Chicago Beer Snob, first time asker, never listener. Well, thanks for your honesty. If Crawford doesn't come back this year, and can they throw him on long-term injured reserve in the offseason, get cap space back? Yeah, that's always a possibility if a guy's hurt. Realistic trade deadline deals like say the Blackhawks make. We talked about that. What is the speed of a swallow carrying a 1-pound coconut? You know what the speed is? It's there you go. Blackhawks or BL Hawks on Twitter. If the Hawks are playing the Oilers and McDavid circles his own net and breaks the puck out, how quickly does he blow past Seabrook before the blue line, or will it make will Seabrook make it into the neutral zone first? I think we know the answer to that. SC Dakota RT Billy Wilson. What will Gustafsson's role be moving forward and beyond? Is he signed through next year? I think he has one more year left. With aging Keith and Seabrook and the emergence of Yoki Haru and the possibility promotion of Beaudin and Boqvist. Don't forget Ian Mitchell. Do not forget Ian Mitchell. Next year, is Gustafsson still a top 4 D man and a power play contributor? Power play contributor, sure, he could be. Top 4 D man, no. Absolutely not. We talked about that earlier. Guys, got any more to add to that?
No. And again, I think that this whole discussion, I think, kind of masks the fact that the Hawks really need to acquire a defenseman somehow, maybe a couple of them, who are, really, really rugged defenders because of that whole list of guys that we're talking about, forming the future of this defense. None of those guys can be described that way.
Right. And now this kind of segues nicely into your guys' areas of expertise, with, who they should bring in or what would be smart for them to bring in, what kind of players, as far as defensemen go. Ty, what, are you hearing anything? You got any ideas? What are you feeling?
Yeah, I feel like, I'm with John. I think there needs to be, I thought it last year, there needs to be someone close to the top four to come in and play. I mean, this, I think I saw a projected lineup with, I think it even had Boquist and Mitchell in the same one, and Yoki Haru. I mean, that's not realistic to have all of those young players, and why rush them? It's fun to get excited about them, but as we all know, people get a little too excited. And yeah, I mean, I was on board with a guy like Calvin DeHaan last year. He wasn't super expensive. He's not the flashiest guy, but he ended up going to Carolina, and who knows if the Hawks even pursued him. But someone of that level, top four, top five, because really, like we just said earlier in the podcast, there's not a lot of people on the back end to sign UFA this year that would make a big difference in that regard. Maybe a Tyler Myers, but I mean, he plays the right side. I don't know where he fits in, but I think it's going to be through a trade. And I think you need that really defensive defenseman and a veteran presence, because when Gustafsson's doing a 360 through at his blue line trying to bring it out and he gets knocked over, someone needs to kind of take him down the bench and tell him that's not going to work. I mean, Keith and Seabrook are there, but you can't have all these young guys on the back end. So I'm on board. I'm on board with a top spending more money on defense than that Panarin guy.
Well, and again, there's not a lot of great choices in free agency.
No.
But when you bring up trade, I mean, there are young guys out there that are defensemen. And I won't go through all of them, but a couple of names. I mean, one guy that I don't. There's probably no way they could get him would be like Kyle Sergachev from Tampa, or another guy who possibly they might be able to pry away, but the price would be high, and that's the bottom line. You're going to have to perhaps give up some of these prize prospects or a good young player that you've acquired in the last few years to get somebody like Adam Larson. But that's the kind of guy I think they need. They need that big, skilled, nasty top four defenseman, could play big minutes, play both ends of the ice. That's the kind of guy they need on defense, and they may have to trade for him and do a value for value deal. But from the standpoint, you've got all these great young prospects on defense, but they're all kind of the same player in a lot of ways. Maybe there's not room for all of those guys to play. So maybe you package one of those guys with another good young player and maybe a pick and go out and you get that cornerstone, next Brent Seabrook. And I mean the Brent Seabrook of 2010, not the one of 2019.
Well, that's what I really think that they're missing is that Brent Seabrook. That's why I wanted the Noah Dobson, pick, because I thought that would be the next Seabrook type player in his prime.
Or maybe even better.
Yeah.
And that's a good point. I think by accumulating these top defensemen, like you said, John, I think there's going to be a point where they do trade one of them, and they're going to be dealing from an area of strength, where they deal one of these young guys for more proven, or maybe someone up front.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, let's look at it honestly. I mean, they all can't be in the lineup at the same time, right? There's only so much room. There's only so many spots. So if you have, 9 young puck-moving defensemen in the system, some got to go, man. There's not enough room on this boat. So,
and the other thing is that the time to trade them is when they're the bloom's on the rose and they can do no wrong, which is now, as opposed to after they're up for 40 games and suddenly people start to see, maybe that guy's not going to be so great after all.
Yep.
I mean, so we'll see. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see because I mean the trade route again, a lot of the trades Stan Bowman has made have been salary cap trades. Trades meant to be either motivated by current cap considerations or future cap considerations. Like, for example, the deal that sent Panarin to Columbus and Hjalmarsson to Arizona. You know, the big value for value trade that's about rebuilding or building the team. He hasn't really made that, but that doesn't mean he can't. But it's going to be uncharted territory for him and for the organization with him.
Right. Now, let me also throw this out there. Once again, like it was early, in the preseason, it was Carolina was a big subject, and now I guess it was recently said that Carolina is open for business and taking offers on people. And not that this necessarily helps their problem, but Dougie Hamilton may be on the trade. He's more of a puck moving guy than he is a shutdown defensive guy. But say, what do you guys think about pickpocketing someone from Carolina? Anyone, even if it is a forward. You guys got any insight or any thoughts on that?
Go ahead, Ty.
Yeah, they've got a lot of great defensemen. I think you could probably snag. I think I was reading something similar, Gate, where it was, anybody but Slavin would be kind of on the back end would be available, they think. And I don't know what's going on with Dougie Hamilton. I've heard some things that, there's been some things kind of in the public where he's doesn't really fit personality wise. Something's odd going on if they're already kind of putting his name back out there that he's going to another team already. He's $5.7 million for the next 3 years. So he's 25. He's a great talent, but he has not done well there. And I think that trade really worked out for Calgary with Lindholm and Hannafin. It's really backfired on Carolina. Mm-hmm. But Justin Falk's name came up. We heard the whole Falk for Saad swap, and he's got another year of 4.8. Would he be? I just don't think he's the type, right? That you want that. He's a little more offensive, not that full-rounded defenseman, a little more physical. But Brett Pesce, I think, would be the guy that stands out to me. I still like DeHaan, but I think they just signed him. I don't know if they'd move him already, but Brett Pesce's $4 million for the next 6 years, 24 years old. Could be a guy. So I don't know, but it seems like they're open for business, and I think there's going to be some really important moves. And I do think, like we've said a few times, I think trading for a defenseman over spending for one in free agency would be the way to go for Stan. So if he can jump on one, they might not be buyers or sellers. They might just be looking for player moves at this point, is what it kind of sounds like in the narrative coming out of the front office.
Yeah, you mentioned Slavin. You're going to make our poor friend Erik cry. He's a Slavin fanboy.
Erik, he is a bad man.
he's
an
an
a
expert.
Great defenseman. He should be a big fan of him. He's a fantastic defenseman.
He has intimate knowledge of the Slavin family, so he was
very happy. Brothers, so we're winning there somehow.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So wrapping up the questions. Let's see. Fatty Beef. 36 games left, over and under of 75 points. They're at 40. They were at 76 last year. If Crawford, I don't even know. I was going to say right at 75 at this point, but I said a lot lower earlier in the year. And my prediction was that they were going to be under that. They were going to be like under 70. They've made a lot of changes since then. With that particular roster, I thought maybe they'd be under 70. With this roster, I think maybe they can make it to 75. It doesn't matter at this point. Unless you get like 95 points, who cares? So
yeah, it's like the Anthony Lewis argument. It's okay, whatever.
Yeah. So it's just a matter of where they are in the standings, and let's hope they're as low as possible for this year. I can handle it. We can swallow it. So. Derek Ciavalis, he's a double agent. He got us on Facebook and on Twitter. Thoughts on Bowman targeting first rounders? We talked about that. Thoughts on John Hayden? I personally think he needs to be a lot more physical and hard on the forecheck. Honestly, I think he should be moved or sent down for Edsel. Sure. I guess John Hayden is what John Hayden is. He's kind of a tweener. 13th forward at this point in time on a bad team.
Is there any evidence that Edsel would be anything else except for the fact that at least Hayden can play a fourth line grinding role, and Edsel really can't do that. I mean, Edsel has shown nothing at the NHL level.
He's not physical at all either. So if that's what I was looking for, it's not the same player. Edsel's been bad. Edsel's just been bad in Rockford. Like, I mean, I just expected more is why I think he's been bad. But I mean, he's been streaky. I'm not sure if that.
I did too, because they were using him all over the place on the power play and all over the place.
And he was so good last year down the stretch in the playoffs. He was Jeremy Colton's secret weapon. He was scoring game-tying goals, game-winning goals. He was using his body, and then I don't know what happened. He just kind of fell off.
Yeah, I mean, he started off slow this year for sure, and then I don't know if maybe something changed when Colleton was moved up because it was Colleton's boy. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I thought maybe Edsel could be like that next Artem Anisimov kind of player, and only better. But he doesn't seem to be working out so far. But you know what? Erik Gustafsson 2 years ago didn't play a single NHL game, was buried down in the AHL, so who knows what's going to happen.
But, I mean, Gustafsson has always had NHL-level mobility. I mean, he's always been an NHL-level skater, and I'm not sure that Edsel is. I think that's the thing that makes him a good Swedish league or AHL player, is that he's fast enough for those leagues, but I think in the NHL he gets exposed. And the guy is just so stunningly inadequate at the NHL level so far. Anyway, maybe it changes. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to give him a shot, sure, go ahead. But if you think you're going to get anything more out of him, like you said, what you got out of John Hayden, probably not right at this point in time. But at least what he's doing in the AHL right now, who knows? Crazier things have happened. Richard Iozo. So answer this on the podcast, he says. Where I lost my place. There we go. Answer this on the podcast. The Hawks have, and they draft Kako. Will Eddie be cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs? Yes, I'm sure Edzo and Pat will have plenty of fun with that.
Capo.
Yeah. Kako, yeah. Hawks fan, a Z realistic D man. They could scoop up. We kind of talked about that a little bit. Top choices. What do you expect from Delia to be the starter next year? I don't know. I think Delia is going to get a chance, at least the way he's going right now. The wheels could fall off the wagon at any second. I believe in Delia. I have for years. We know all about this. We know my history with the Delia thing. I believe in him. I think he could be, in the running for starter possibly next year. But the wheels could fall off the car tomorrow, and he could be back in Rockford before the end of the season. And the team could fall apart. We don't know right now what's going to happen. So let's take it, one game at a time or 1 week at a time at least. And
I think Delia has gotten himself into the conversation as far as a potential number one netminder for the Hawks going forward. But that's one thing, being a number one netminder. The bigger ask is can he be, say, a top 10 goalie in the NHL? And I think that remains to be seen. Definitely. I mean, that's not to say that he can't, but I don't think that he's shown enough to say that he can.
He's 5-6 games into his NHL career. Let's not start, we yell all the time about tap the brakes, calm down, stop putting these unrealistic expectations.
Right.
That's what we're saying here. Be realistic. Let's just take it one game at a time. Let's be happy for what he's doing. And let's hope he can maintain it somewhat. It's unsustainable, the numbers he was putting up and the saves. Like at some point in time.
He had kind of a lesser outing last game. I mean, he gave up 4. And a couple of them may have been stoppable. And I'm not here to bash him because the guy he's proven a lot to me this year, and I'm definitely on the Delia train because I really think he's got to be part of the conversation now, and it's a nice, pleasant surprise the way he stepped up this year. So please don't take that I'm bashing him, but at the same time, he's coming back to earth a little bit, or at least he has the last couple outings. But, he hasn't given up, 5 or 6 in a game yet either. So, and he's seen a lot of rubber.
Hey, now. What are your thoughts on this, Ty? On the whole Delia thing?
Same thing. I wouldn't get too excited too quickly. It all depends on Crawford. I mean, they're gonna have to make moves regardless. I mean, Delia what is he up for a new contract at the end of the year? But
yeah, he's an RFA.
Is Forsberg going to be in the organization anymore, or do they keep him in Rockford? But I mean, Crawford's kind of the linchpin in it all. I don't think they go into next year if Crawford, if he's kind of admitted or retires or decides he's not coming back, they're not going to go into the season, I don't think, as Delia as their number one. They're going to need that. I mean, same reason why they brought Ward in, or do they re-sign Ward and let Delia roll with it? I'm not an advocate of that. I'm just saying I think you need that veteran presence behind him. And that's kind of what I would say to that.
I could see them going into next year with Delia and Ward. I could, because
I tend to, yeah.
Yeah, because they're not.
It's actually not been too bad, so.
Yeah, they're not going to go far next year either.
No.
So I could definitely see that, Delia being the young, rising star potentially, and Ward being the seasoned veteran who's helping bring him along. Because I actually think that's what they were thinking, that Ward was going to be this year with Forsberg. But Delia's kind of stolen that job from Forsberg of being the goalie of the future, or at least a goalie of the future. So I could definitely see that. As a matter of fact, if I had to bet, that's probably what's going to happen. I'm not as open-minded, I think, about Crawford coming back as you are. I just feel like it's really. I mean, if he comes back at all, I'll be surprised. If he comes back and plays well, I'll be floored.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, and I mean,
that's a big area, right? Like maybe they go. I mean, I think you guys were talking about it in a couple podcasts ago, just what goalies are available. Maybe they don't go Ward. Maybe they go Crawford's done. Crap, we need someone, I don't think they're going to spend Bobrovsky money, but maybe they try to shore up that area bigger than what we think and bigger than a Cam Ward, right? And then have Delia there as the backup and the learning curve for him for next year. Yeah,
well, maybe, they didn't do it this year, and I want them to do it. But after the season started, I realized why they didn't do it. But Robin Lehner,
right?
Like, yeah, I wanted them to give him a shot last year, and I couldn't understand why they didn't, because he's younger, he's got potential ahead of him. He's young, he's cheaper, the whole thing. But then come to find out, he was in rehab. We've heard the organization kind of shies away from players who may have some sort of, addiction problem or drinking problem or anything like that. So to understand, that they may want to stay away from something where, a player's just coming out of rehab, I can get that. I can totally understand that. But now that he's been through rehab, and now that they've seen he's had a bounce back year, maybe, he's going to get a raise for sure from what he's doing with the Islanders, but he's not going to get Bobrovsky type money.
No.
After 1 year. So maybe they do something like that. And again, like we're all saying, it's nothing against Calandea, because I love Calandea and I was probably his biggest fan. I think he can be the future number one guy, but maybe you do take a Robin Lehner for a year or two. I don't see Lehner getting, a 7-year deal anywhere, but.
No, I think term is going to be the issue with Lehner because of the fact that he has an illness.
Yeah.
That can recur. The numbers are phenomenal this year, and he's living up to the promise that people always felt was there with him.
Yeah.
And so probably what somebody will do is offer him big money per year on 3 maybe 4 year term. Unless you feel really confident. I don't know. In where he's at, I don't think you can make a bet on a long-term future one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, having Calandea there and where he's at, and sure, it's a small sample size, is better than the position they've been in several other times when they got Alec Richard playing for him, or something like that. So, they got a little bit of depth in the minors, and they got a little depth up with Delia. It looks like he can somewhat at least carry a backup load in the NHL. So that's positive. So let's hit the last two. So, where do you think Stan's headed? Do you trust him to reconstruct this team? Well, no, I don't. But I don't know that we have a choice at this point in time. But if he seemed, right now, I think in McDonough's eyes, with the past 3 moves or whatever that he's made, I think he's kind of made himself look a little better than he did previously. Because honestly, when he fired Quenneville, he should have been out the door too. So I feel a little more comfortable, but I don't know that I trust him to reconstruct this team. That's kind of we don't know. He's never had to do it before, so we don't know.
Yeah, and my feeling is you're I don't know if it's the right question. I don't know if it's a question of confidence in Bowman or a confidence in the front office as a whole, especially as led by John McDonough, because I feel like this team now is going on 3 years where it's been obvious that they're in decline, and not just decline, steep decline. And there's been a lot of sort of vacillation and milling about and sort of casting about, but no real clear plan to really rebuild. And we've coined the term, we coined it here, the silent rebuild, or, a soft rebuild, which appears to be what's been going on. And I think for a while they were fooling some of the fans. I don't think they are anymore. I think the only people they're fooling now is themselves. If you're going to rebuild, you got to really go after it and really, really do it hard and honestly. And a lot of organizations do that. They'll come out and say, look, we're not happy with where we are. We need to get better and get a lot better, and we want you to stick with us. And it's painful. It's short-term costly in terms of lost revenue, but ultimately it is the thing that gets you back to being a great team. I'm not convinced this front office can do it. I think that they lie to themselves. Maybe that's the wrong word. That's too strong a word. I think that they fool themselves into believing every kid they draft is going to solve some need and be the solution and the answer. And the reality of it is, look at all the draft picks. Teuvo Teravainen, Ryan Hartman, Nick Schmaltz. All players who sort of fit a certain profile. All of whom are gone. So I don't have a high confidence level in this front office to rebuild. I think Stan Bowman is effective in some ways as a general manager, but I think it's more managing a salary cap, creating cap room when he has to create cap room. But as far as those big creative visionary moves that go out and bring in building blocks, I haven't seen it in 10 years. Now, he hasn't had to until the last 2 or 3 years. But so far, I haven't seen it. And I'm just not sure that this front office as a whole, because I don't think McDonough understands that how important that is. I don't think he gets it at all.
What do you think, Ty?
Yeah, I think I like what you touched on, John, there with the honesty. I think we're all kind of in the same boat where this team's, especially to the public, has been, to the fan base, has kind of been stringing people along. I thought it was really refreshing when just being in this market in Toronto, when, Brendan Shanahan was hired and came in and basically said exactly what you said, John. This is going to be painful. This is a rebuild. Obviously, in Toronto, they've got a lot of corporate money that floats the books pretty well. But look what they've been able to do through honesty and through, essentially, bottoming out and getting Austin Matthews. And so that was kind of refreshing, because you just kind of, when you follow a team like the Hawks and you get so inundated with it, you just kind of think that's the norm, and it's not with every other organization. And the Leafs did it right. And in terms of rebuilding, it's not the 5 to 7 years anymore that it used to be. It's, Stan's already alluded to Colorado, and I don't know if that's going to be the best case. Colorado seems to have turned it around pretty quick, and they've had some ups and downs, but it is possible, a 1 year, 2 year, kind of maybe into the 3 year that this team could turn around, but the moves start now. And I think this trade deadline this offseason is extremely vital for Stan. And I don't know if I have the highest confidence. Like you said, I think it's this front office does have too many people trying to make decisions and kind of holds things back. But I don't know what other option there is right now to see what they have going in the trade deadline, and if Stan's still there in the summer, it's his last shot, I think. So we'll see how he handles it.
Well, and the one name that we brought up, if Stan wasn't to be around, was Mark Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that would be someone who you could see coming in. He's really known, he's known as a scout type GM. Yeah. Like, there you go. That's where you build a team with.
I completely agree. I think that's what they need for the next GM. And they need somebody who's a builder, who is a very shrewd judge of talent. And again, Stan Bowman has his strengths, but I'm not sure he's quite at the elite level as far as that goes. And, the other problem is that you've got a front office apparatus with a lot of cooks in the kitchen. My understanding is it's been difficult over the years for Bowman to make moves without being second guessed or stopped or whatever. And the reality of it is that, guys like John McDonough have to get out of the way and let the hockey guys do their jobs in order to rebuild this thing. But it feels to me like the Hawks management model has very clearly been, to have a lot of second guessing and a lot of decisions by committee, et cetera. And, you had the luxury of doing that when you had a core of Jonathan Toews, Patrick Kane, Marian Hossa, Duncan Keith, et cetera, Corey Crawford, Brent Seabrook, Patrick Sharp, all the way down the line. You could do that in terms of, rebuilding around the edges. You could be a corporate front office. But I think, to rebuild, you need to bring in top quality talent assessors, from a hockey background, and then let them do their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. That's
not what we have now. We don't have that right now.
No, but
and I think the Mark Hunter suggestion is really interesting because I think he'd work really well with Jeremy Colleton. I mean, obviously he would be the one to decide if Colleton stays, but Colleton's ability to work with younger players and Hunter's really strong ability to judge talent and be really good in that area. I think they would work well together. But we got Bowman, so that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, and it looks like at least at this point in time, it looks like we're going to have him through at least into next year. So,
yep. He's making the moves, right? So they're giving him that leash.
Yeah, we'll see how big the moves get, though. But hopefully,
yeah, true.
I'm praying for chaos. I like a little chaos. It lights the fire, like I said several times. So I guess that wraps up questions. I think we can get out of here, huh, guys? All right?
Sure.
Yes.
Cool. So anyway, you can find all of our comprehensive content at www.the-rink.com. You can find us on all the popular social media at The Rink Official, at The Rinkcast. I am at Puck and Hostel. You are at Jaeckel, Jaeckel. Tyler is at Justin Lowe HB, and that's Lowe with an E on Twitter. And you can be found at HockeyBuzz.com. I'm linking them all in the post on the website so that you can get to Justin even easier, or Tyler, or Justin, or Tyler. Where did you come up with that name, the pseudonym?
It was really weird. Like I said, I was telling people on the blog today in the message board that I had to come up with a pseudonym just because it was a conflict of interest with working at a sports company.
Yeah.
We had an outside writing policy, but I came up with Justin Lowe. I live outside of Toronto. The place is called Lowville. So I came up with Lowe as the last name. My brother's name's Justin. So it sounded like a hockey dude. It's weird writing under a different name, but it just kind of stuck, and I went with it to be able to continue to write. So. Well,
yeah, you're talking to a guy who for probably 7 years wrote under a pseudonym of Gatekeeper. So,
Right.
But yeah, so that happens. But
yeah.
Yeah, so you can find all
sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. What were you gonna say?
I was just going to say thanks a lot for having me. It was awesome. Great. Always chatting about the Blackhawks, and appreciate the invite, and always happy to jump on and talk about the great Erik Gustafsson.
Yeah. We'll have you back.
Yes, definitely, for sure. Now that we've opened this channel up, we'll definitely have you on again, maybe around trade deadline and free agency, maybe in the summer or something like that. We'll do a double header of Double J and JL or TC or whatever we want to say.
Yeah. Sounds good. I need to get my own sound clip soon. Maybe I'll just be.
We can do that. Yeah. I don't know if you listened when I did the old Shoutcast, but I used to have full intros for people that were on multiple times. Yeah. John's got one still sitting in the vault somewhere. I should pull it out again.
Nice.
But anyway, if you guys get a chance, head over to iTunes, rate and review us. I was supposed to check today to see if anyone went over there. I checked earlier today, no one had. I'm doubting at this point in time that anyone has since then. But yeah, get over there. That helps us out, helps us move up the rankings. Some people may not need that help, but hey, we do. So we would like to move up the rankings, get more listeners and all that good stuff. So get over there, rate and review us. I got plugs. Let me see. First, I want to say, I know you're all listening to this now, but if you prefer to listen to this on the YouTube channel, you can get over there. It's linked in the post on the website. We have links on the website to get to the YouTube page. I'm going to start posting them every week. I think maybe in the future we had talked about before. We may turn this into more of a video podcast. So you get over the YouTube page. You can listen to it through YouTube if you prefer it in that manner. Otherwise, you can get it on all the podcast form places you've got them before. I don't think I have any other big shout-outs. John, you got anything?
Puck Hockey, PUCKHCKY, our official sponsors. Check them out, puckhockey.com. Great gear, really great design, cool hockey stuff for you and your whole family and all your friends, too. That's all I got.
Yep. I mentioned the last couple times our boy Patrick Judge. Their album's gonna be coming out March 1st. I played the song in the last couple podcasts. Go out there and get it if you can, or get whatever songs you can off of iTunes or whatever. You can do it with a single click, all that good stuff. I don't have any more. How about you, Ty? You got any more shout-outs or anything you want to call out?
No, it's been a lot of fun. Looking forward to coming back. Other than if you know anybody getting married, any dudes that need a lot of advice, go buy my book. You can go to tylercameron.com.
Well, I do have a fiance, so.
There you go.
See, there you go.
Check it out.
There you go. All right. Well, cool. Well, with that being said, thanks to everybody for taking time out of your busy schedules to download, listen, and support us. Until next episode, see you on the rink.